going to be, Neil is the only attendee or appointment, and he submitted two designs. The one that's for Taylor Street, which is the old Living Gate, which is a 4-bedroom house, a 3,300 square foot office building with a kitchen. And this is a complete system in repair. And Neil did send in a change this afternoon. And the review is completed. It's till, it's shallow to ledge. It's sloped in the leach area. It's got a high water table with models. It's grassy and brushy. It's previously failed perks in that area for new construction. The issues that there are is the slope in the SAS, the ledge, the water table, and then 2 buildings that have a common well and common septic system. The design he's come up with is still using the common well and common septic system. And it's a pretty big system, 990 gallons capacity. Actually, I got it backwards. It's 996 gallons capacity and 990 gallons requirement. There are 2 1,500 gallon tanks. There are 2 compartments. They've got outlet filters on them. It's also now has a pump chamber, and it is 12 trenches. They're terraced. They're Elgin modules, which are innovative systems, according to the state, with vents. Fill. They're ballast on both tanks and the pump chamber. There's going to be an alarm going into both the house and the building. There's a deed notification for the use of the Elgin system, a deed restriction for a single ownership, as long as that common well or common septic system is there. Also, there's a request for water table separation reduction from 4 feet to 2 feet. Now that 4 feet to 2 feet is allowed because this is this innovative system. The SAS separation to the well, that shouldn't say wells, and wetlands is greater than 100 feet. My suggestion is that now we don't even have to grant a variance for this one because of the innovative system. We just have to just allow it. The deed notification is one that's not a Granby regulation. That's an Elgin in the state of Massachusetts say that it's got to be on the deed that says that system is there. And so I'm suggesting we approve the 4 foot to 2 foot water table separation, approve the design subject to the submission of the modified drawings, which Colleen said are here, an electrical permit for the pump system, fill regulations, the trench permit, and prior to the certificate of completion, submission of an exercise deed notification for the Elgin system, and prior to the.
I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I want to make sure I can hear you.
Uh-oh. I've got a feeling that is Alex in his other job, but prior to the certificate of completion, submission of the exercise deed restriction preventing the division of the 2 buildings and with the shared well or septic system. So that's a bunch of stuff. It turns out that when Neil and I went through this, he was going to put in a level system, and which is certainly not a great thing with a big system like this, to have it used uniformly is very difficult. But after he went through it, he said it was actually cheaper to put the pump in. And I was happy with that because it's definitely going to dose the whole system and make it last a lot longer. But Herb and Lee, what are your thoughts?
So your revised plan, does it show the well? Because at the print I'm looking at, I don't see it. I believe it's up behind the existing office.
Yeah, it's, if you look at the drawing of my drawings in the other room, it shows it, and he put on the fact that it's beyond 100 feet to the tanks and the leach field, and it would be right at the top of your drawing.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's under the word layout. Yeah, my error.
Okay.
So now on the print that I've got, where all the trenches are, the 6 of them, so now there's going to be 12 trenches in that same footprint.
No, 6.
6
Six.
of the Elgin.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, with a pump chamber.
with a pump chamber right in front of it.
Okay.
And what allows the well to service more than one building?
Well, the deed restriction, it's doing that now. And the deed restriction would say that they can't separate the ownership when they have either the common well or the common septic system, because it's unmanageable once that happens. But that's the purpose of the deed restriction. It's not illegal right now because it's on that same property owned by the same, one person. The funny thing that we get into here is, and I talked to Neil about it, is we don't have very good leverage. If someone just puts it in and starts using it, we're going to have to watch it and make sure that deed restriction is there and really go after them. But the problem, what I was going to suggest, is that the deed work be done before we sign the permit. But that can't easily be done because the issues, well, some of it might be, but the one for the Elgin system won't be there. So you can't put the deed restriction or notification for the Elgin system because it's not there.
Does the Elgin system, we don't hardly see many of these. The Elgin system or the Elgin system company approves installers on this system. Is that correct?
I don't know that, I didn't see that in the Elgin handbook or write-up. It appears to me that if you look at these are like, they're like flat flow diffusers, but wrapped in fabric and filled with sand. They're only 9 inches high, I think, and they're 3 foot wide and 4 feet long, with a pipe going across the top. But they require some special sand around them too. But they've called it out, and it's part of the design.
Okay. I may be thinking of a different alternative system which required some type of time on the clock.
Right.
Either in a we just
Yeah, I know the
bring it
ones
in.
you're talking about. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. It's the one that's got those wrapped tubes.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so everything appears to be done. The shared well is spec'd out, the office, the house, the system, the ballast, the pump chamber with ballast. So it appears to all have been covered up through all the preliminary work here.
Herb, what do you think?
Well, I don't know, Dick. This is past what I understand, but what would happen 20 years from now when none of us are around and something goes wrong with this system? Who's going to be savvy enough to deal with it?
It looked to me like this is a pretty straightforward pump system, that the actual modules that he's using are not very sophisticated. They're just basically bags filled with sand, and and the state allows them that as an innovative system. So I don't know the answer to your question, but it doesn't seem like it's a technology driven system like some of these aeration tanks and recirculating filters. My feeling is the system will end up working and being a good system. We either have to approve this or reject this.
No, I mean, I think we've been through the questions. Herb has a valid point to the future. We're not going to be here to hit this one twice, but I believe from what I can see in the questions that I have asked and Herb has asked, I think we got this thing covered, and you put a lot of time into it as well. So as far as I can tell, that we got the best we're gonna get out of this thing.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, at this point in time, I think we should approve what we have and move on to the next one, if that's okay with Herb and Dick.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. The next one's kind of a littler one of the same design. This is on 27 New Ludlow Road. This is a 3-bedroom house. It was submitted as a 4-bedroom by mistake. It's a repair and a complete system. It's deep sands, a very high water table. It's designed for the models. It's a very small, grassy, level lot with public water. The issues are the high water table. There is, and one of the deep holes showed that there was fill under it, and it's a small lot. It is designed for 440 and with a 440 requirement. There's one 1502 compartment tank with a filter. There's a pump chamber. This one has got 4 trenches with 5 modules in each trench. They're vented. There's no reserve area. Pump, fill. He's also got a liner on the edges of high density polyethylene around it. There's ballast provided for the septic tank and the pump chamber. It also requires a deed notification for the Elgin system. The SAS separation to the wetlands are greater than 100 feet, and there's no well wells, period, because of public water. There's a request for a 5-foot to 3-foot water table separation reduction with the innovative Elgin system. once again, a variance isn't needed, just approval. My suggestion is to approve the 5-foot to 3-foot water separation reduction, to approve the design subject also to getting the new drawing that shows the 3-bedroom house. And the drawing I had didn't have the pump electrics with alarm on it. That's on the new one. There was a mistake on the water table elevation dimension for hole 1, that's corrected, and the deed notification requirement. So plus we've got the fill regulations. There's a plumbing permit required on this one because there's work closer than 10 feet to the house, which puts us under the plumbing code. Electrical permit, a trench permit, and prior to the certificate of completion, the submission of the exercise deed notification for the Elgin system. What are your thoughts, Herb and Lee?
I can't see, I can't see anything that wasn't just addressed.
Herb?
I'm doing my best to read through it all. I'm okay.
Okay. And I am too. What Neil did do though, is I suggested that the Liberty pump is a much better pump than the Gould pump. The one's a Chinese pump with not the best of warranties, and Neil did change to the Liberty. And so I'm okay, and Lee, you're okay. So Colleen, that's all approved.
Okay.
So I have a question for you, Dick.
Okay.
Let's say the Liberty pump fails and you've suggested a change to that Liberty pump. Does that put us in jeopardy for the suggestion from the board to change pumps?
Actually, when I talked to Neil about it, I said, I'm not suggesting this. I'm suggesting that when I looked into the 2 pumps, if it were me that were buying one, I would buy for my house, I would buy a Liberty, but I'll never say that you need to do this. You can do anything you want. You're the engineer. It's your choice.
Okay, as long as it's phrased that way. Otherwise, I would not be in favor.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, Herb, that your house has got a Liberty pump.
Well, I don't know whether it does or not, but it's already failed once.
Okay, so when it comes time to change it again, let's make sure you at least think about the Liberty.
Right.
So my next one, before I forget, which I always do, is actually, Neil should be around by now. Well, when he shows up, we'll tell him. The meeting minutes from the last meeting, October 26th, I just had a couple corrections. And Herb, I noticed that you made one.
Yes, I move approval.
Are you okay, Lee, with that?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Me
thank
too,
you.
Colleen, so that's approved.
Okay.
The next one is Colleen's timesheet for the November 6th, and it's a standard 70-hour, 2-week timesheet. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Yes,
And yes, for me too, Colleen, that's approved.
Okay.
The next one is the money turnover. We've got $500 for Board of Health and plumbing permits, $1,000 for the fine for the smoking tobacco violation, totaling $1,500. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Me too, Colleen, that's approved.
Okay.
Next one is Neil, if you're here, which I don't see you, you break in, please. But the next one is a temporary food license for the Women of the Church of Christ for the Jingle Bell Bazaar on December 4th. Are we okay with that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Me too, Colleen, that's
Okay.
next one is Friends of Library, temporary food license for the same date, December 4th, for a holiday basket sale. And it's for hot cocoa. Are we okay with that?
Sure.
Herb?
As long as they put marshmallows in it.
Well, I said they were, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I am too, Colleen, so that's approved.
Okay. Okay.
The next one is, Lee, we're gonna have to ask you about this one. It looks like it's the certificate of completion, right, Colleen, for
No,
lot?
they were just getting, they were just getting the sign off for the building department. The septic, it was just approved, the permit, in July.
So they only want us to sign off on the building permit, but this is the one that they didn't have the water test, right?
Yeah, they don't have the water, but I just wanted to make sure I had the okay in case he comes back for the septic, because he didn't, he wanted that sign off, but.
But this is an
I
approved design, right, Colleen?
Yes, it was approved July 6th this year.
So Lee, this is only for building permit. It isn't a certificate of completion. It's just our initials on the building permit saying they can move forward on the septic design part.
Okay. Because I can't recall July, but I know I haven't been on Kendall Street for quite some time to do anything. There's been no request.
Yeah. And that's why, it looks like that's why, because it's not done. I'm okay with this, Herb and Lee.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, Colleen, that's approved for only the septic part.
Yes, okay, so I can sign off for the septic only. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Now, Neil is still not here. So we can go only one Title V inspection report. That was 225 Chicopee Street from Greg Everson, and it passed. Are we okay to accept that, Lee? No,
Yes, that was a new.
to receive it, not accept it.
Receive it, yeah. He replaced two components, the distribution box and the tank have been replaced on that property.
So we're okay to receive this one?
Yes.
Okay. Herb, you're okay?
Yes, as long as we're receiving.
Yeah. So Colleen, we can receive that.
Okay,
The next one that we have is I had 3 assignments that we'll have to talk, and one was Chris Martin to see how we were going to deal with President Biden's order for vaccinations. One was to talk with Stephen Sullivan about the schools and their mask and vaccination issues. And the third was Brian O'Toole on Dollar General. So I guess those don't have to come. They can be on other business. So on the mask order,
There was a fourth one, Dick. You were going to talk to Sharon Hart.
oh, and I didn't do that. I did not do that. I will do that.
Okay.
So on the mask orders, we've received several now requests as to whether we want to do something, in fact, specifically saying rescind our mask order. As it turns out, my talks with, I ended up also talking to McDuffie about this. I talked to Andrew Parker and I talked to Stephen Sullivan. And at this point, they're not ready to ask us to be dropping any kind of masks. We certainly, I don't know if Herb and Lee, if you saw it, Nancy Jenks sent us all a note this afternoon saying she thought the masks in the school were an important part in the way that they're controlling or eliminating the in-school spread of preventing, I guess, not eliminating. I'm just that certainly Springfield, the paper said, has rescinded their order. Pittsfield just put one in. Greenfield has taken kind of a different approach. They kept their mask order for public buildings, including schools, and they rescinded it for private buildings with the advice that they should be used. If you look at what I sent out today for Granby's position on the spread of COVID, it looks like we've had about more than a week of declining transmissions, even to the point that the town on the 14-day, the gross numbers, the 14 days hit the green, the new green, not the old green, but the new green. And for a few days, we are out of the CDC red, but we're only right at the edge of being out of the red. And it looks like within a day or two, we could, depending on our performance, we could go into the red again. But Herb and Lee, what are your thoughts?
My thought is that Greenfield has perhaps the right idea. I think public buildings and schools should retain the mask mandate. I think private businesses, no shirt, no shoes, no service. I think they can decide what's appropriate for their business. And I say that understanding that we're a long way from getting through this whole thing, but we're tearing ourselves apart with a lot of this controversy. And there isn't any hard and fast answer. So it's all conjecture. It's almost all conjecture, and it's opinion. And that doesn't mean that opinions can't be well thought out. But I think our schools and public buildings should retain mask mandate. Whether our private businesses do or not, perhaps that should be up to them.
Lee, what are your, I can fully support your stand.
Okay.
Lee, what do you think?
I get where everyone's coming from. I guess as long as we stay, obviously, somewhat available to, obviously, if we have to jump backwards, we jump backwards, and no harm done if this thing starts to really escalate within the next 4 to 6 weeks. I have had quite a few different businesses call me at work complaining about people coming in without masks, and, you know, not a big confrontation thing, but even complaints about Dollar General and other locations who don't enforce anything anyway, and half the employees have a mask on incorrectly, if at all. So, yeah, maybe it's time to at least consider rolling it backwards, except for the municipalities, including the school, of course.
So if we take what I think we just all agreed is that we'd say that we're going to eliminate for private businesses, we're going to eliminate the mask requirements and suggest that masks be used, but public buildings, including schools, must continue with the mask policy. I think that's what we said.
I would make it stronger. I would say that we strongly recommend that masks be worn in all situations at all venues, but we respect that private businesses can make decisions for themselves, but we strongly recommend that everyone wear masks. I would like to see that wording.
I can support that for sure. Lee, what do you think?
Sure. Yep,
Okay.
I agree.
When do we want to do it? Immediately?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so and we all agree.
Yes.
Lee, you?
Yes, yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
me too. Colleen, so that's unanimous.
Okay.
Okay.
You want me to send letters out then to the businesses, the private businesses?
It's probably a good idea because with the last letter they got said that they had to do it. If we're going, when we changed our mind like this, we should probably let them know.
Okay.
But it would be nice, Colleen, to review that letter before it goes out, if you will.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Neil, I see you're there. So that your systems were both approved. The one for Taylor Street we approved the 4 foot to 2 foot. We gave permission for it since it wasn't a variance needed, but we approved that reduction. And then the rest includes the submission of the new drawings, which you said are done, although you were going to modify it to get the 2 alarms. You require an electrical permit is required there, our fill regulations, a trench permit, and prior to the COC, you've got to submit to us the exercise deed notification for the Elgin system and the restriction, the deed restriction, preventing the separation of the two facilities as long as they are either sharing a well or sharing a septic system. The New Ludlow Road, we approved the 5 to 3 foot separation. We gotta get my, then we approved the design subject to submission of the modified application showing the change to 3 bedrooms, the pump electrics, and the water table correction, and the deed notification requirement, fill regulations. You need a plumbing permit on this one for work that's closer than 10 feet to the house, an electrical permit, a trench permit, and again, prior to the COC submission of the exercise deed notification.
Okay,
Okay?
that sounds great. I was having trouble getting on. I don't know why.
Okay. So then have a good night, Neil.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dick. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.
So,
The notification should also go to police and fire about our decision of masks.
Okay, sure, yep.
and actually, we should make sure that Chris Martin gets it too, so everybody's up to
Okay.
speed.
Sure, yep.
Actually, when you get, I guess even the library should be getting, so the public buildings all should know it, that it hasn't changed for them. So the next one is on the school vaccine mandate. Now, that's where I did talk to Chris Martin, and I didn't see, oh no, a clear desire to force people to get vaccinated. He did say that our attorney is working on it, that it's at least up in the air as to whether Massachusetts towns, even though they have over 100 employees, whether they actually are governed by this OSHA requirement. So that's not fully settled. But when I asked them to Chris, I said, if your employees are mostly school department employees, if the town is going to require this, who in fact would make up, let's say we did it on our own instead of being given a mandate. He thought that it would be the selectmen that ended up with that. But I certainly didn't see that Chris was saying, oh, I'll take the lead to make sure that happens. It seems if we're going after that, we're going to have to be doing it really, I think, ourselves going through the selectmen. In terms of the schools are look like they're over 90% of the teachers and the staff have been vaccinated. And Nancy's got that the state bus coming in on Friday, I think. And she, at this point, has, at least according to Stephen Sullivan, she's got 88 people signed up for that. But he says not all of them are Granby people, not all of them are kids, but that she was feeling a little encouraged about that. The schools are going to be really gearing up. They've got a full-time person dealing with pool testing that's on board as of last week. And so that burden is being shifted away from Nancy so this can be done. They're really going to be cranking up the testing. They're hoping to have all people that are willing to be tested be done right after Thanksgiving. They'll be cranked up.
Why aren't we testing? Is anybody symptomatic?
Who is speaking? No, I don't see who's speaking. But, so that program is going, and they're not seeing any within school spread. They're seeing community spread, but no in-school spread. So that's my report. What did last meeting, we decided not to push. And in fact, what I talked to Stephen about, and actually the same with Andrew Parker, is that if stronger measures are needed, it would seem that the testing would be showing us the within school spread, saying something else has to be, might have to be forced to be done. But last week we said we were going to leave things, other than for my doing this report, that we were going to leave things as they were. Do we want to do something differently at this meeting?
My concern is one of overall town consistency. What I mean by that specifically is that if we're going to tell different businesses do what you want, I don't know if it shows not a lack of concern, of course, but just a lack of town-wide all or nothing. In other words, if we're going to be pushing students to get vaccinated, and I have to tell you that there's enough of probably misinformation and fear and some very concerned parents that themselves may not be vaccinated, but they certainly are worried about someone, whether it's us, Governor Baker, whomever, telling them their child has got to be vaccinated is going to be a mess. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. And if we couple that with telling Dollar General, don't worry about it, I just personally think that's an error waiting to bite us hard.
So it sounds like you're saying, let's not change our approach. Let's continue it for right now anyways.
Well, no, I mean, if we are going to be working with Chris Martin, Nancy Jenks, all the schools in town to try to get all of our young children vaccinated, but we don't follow through with having businesses on board with the same thing, I just get the impression it sends a mixed message to different people in town. And again, the arguments I've been hearing, I mean, just in Belchtown the other day, 7 days ago, I drove through the center of town, and there was a lot of parents up there holding signs about not supporting their child or their children in school getting vaccinated at all. And I know that I've heard some very heated arguments at my particular place of business with the same thought process. So, I mean, having some businesses, Dressels or whoever wants to get rid of the mask, I get it. They're in the garage working. I totally get that. But to go and say, okay, you can take your masks off at Dressels and Dollar General and the package store, but we want all your children vaccinated, I think is a bad idea.
I think those are two completely different issues. Masks and immunization are not equivalent. So I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, Lee. And I'm not sure
Well,
I understand what the parents are saying. Getting
They
immunized is not the same as wearing or not wearing a mask.
correct. The mask
And
to
that
me
shouldn't
is
be
the-
equivalent.
And it's not equivalent. It's just a lot easier for people to, if they're resisting wearing a mask, they believe that they either don't need one or violating some right or some fool thing. Going the next level and forcing the parent or the student to get vaccinated is going to be a messy process.
So are you suggesting that we stop measles and mumps and diphtheria and tetanus vaccinations? Is that what you're suggesting?
I don't
For our
remember
schools?
suggesting that. When did I suggest that?
I asked you whether you were suggesting.
That conversation didn't take place.
So the
Let's
answer
stay on
is no.
point.
The answer to it is the question that Herb just asked is, are you suggesting that? It sounds like you are not.
Never brought it up. The answer is
My
no.
my issue, I still go back to the fact that this vaccine isn't approved for, for you, other than for the emergency use, for people under 12. So I'm still in the point of saying, I have a problem forcing that to happen. The other, in terms of businesses getting vaccinated, it certainly appears to me that you're going to get a couple waves of mandates coming. The first one, I think we're going to end up at the over 100 employee business is going to have to get that done. I think that's going to happen. And then right on the heels, it's my understanding that they're going after smaller businesses. So if that's going to all happen, and I don't hear anybody talking about forcing the kids to get the emergency vaccine, it seems to me that that part of it's very difficult for us to force that.
100% correct.
Herb, what are your thoughts on that one?
I'm not suggesting we force anything. I'm suggesting we be consistent. I'm suggesting that there is an enormous amount of misinformation that is circulating every which way in every community. So I didn't suggest that we mandate or that we have to do things. I was suggesting we be consistent. And if we don't want kids to have one kind of immunization, should they not have another kind of immunization? That was the question that I posed. And we know that a whole series of immunizations are required for kids to go to school. We know that.
Yep.
It's been that way for a very long time.
And it saves a lot of kids' lives.
It saves an enormous number of lives. Yes.
So it sounds to me that we're just not taking a different stand tonight. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure what other stand we can logically take, Dick.
I don't think so either. I agree as much as I believe we all feel that this getting immunized is what's going to help us out of this, and that we should continue pushing it in every way we can. For us to force it, for little Granby to force it, is probably just going to cause a whole bunch of effort and maybe not be very successful.
Well, it wouldn't be successful because people would refuse.
Yeah.
So I think we're just whistling in the wind to say that we're going to mandate that. But I want to second what you just said, and that is we need to immunize our population to have a best chance to stop this nasty disease from killing even more people and maiming others, which it's doing and continues to do, and does it even more in other parts of the world that don't have access to immunization. It's a total scourge. So,
but I think we all just heard some unidentified woman pipe in. When
yes,
you understand the level of misunderstanding and
Yes.
misinformation, when someone would pipe in and say, why should you bother testing any kids in school?
right.
So
Yes.
it's just, if we should all recognize that lack of understanding permeates this country. So, okay, then we'll,
And that type of response is exactly what the point I was trying to get across. And if I presented it incorrectly, I apologize. But, you know, we know firsthand and from day one, the misinformation and refusal about this entire process.
yeah,
And I'm trying to keep us effective, of course. The educational piece is a huge obstacle. And I, you know, none of us have the answer on this one. But I'm trying to, you know, think of a way to get the information out there, which I haven't come up with, without there being a knee-jerk reaction to something that wasn't implied or was not said or anything else in the scope of trying to benefit people.
Lee, I would disagree. I think we do have the answer. The fact that people won't accept that answer, that's another issue. But we do have the answer.
Okay.
well,
Well,
I
I understand your point.
I think the answer, we're talking about two different answers. In one case, I think it's the answer of how do you break through this, you know, either the misinformation or the whatever it is, how do you break through and try to get people who probably don't want to listen to anything or that who won't believe it, and no matter what or no matter who says it, and it's very difficult to find that answer, how you get through. But the facts certainly are there. The tools are there. We have all, other than getting people to want to protect themselves, we've got everything available to us in this country to get this done.
I sent text information around to folks earlier today. I sent everyone some texts about this.
I'm not sure. I got the one from the Gazette that said it's time. That was for the funding of the boards of health. But I didn't.
Yes, no, I sent more. In fact, I sent several more. I sent one on Dollar General, and I sent one.
I saw that.
And I sent one on information from CNN.
I'm not sure I opened. I think I may have seen it. Okay, if we want the next issue that I've got, it is a quick report that on other issues is Dollar General. Herb, you brought it up. I also saw it that there's two very dry holes right now. I did call Brian O'Toole, and he said I told him that we weren't in a crisis in terms of when we had to act, but that in fact, the work they did to open up the bottom of the sedimentation basin is probably going to let it drain for a while, but we didn't want to be in a spot that we're going to have another flooded, stagnant pool of water. And he asked me to put it down on my tickler file to get back to him in about 3 weeks. He's going into a trial, and he said, but he did offer, he was going to look up the regulations on public health nuisances, and he had our original citation for the public health nuisance, and he said we're going to have to be very specific with it, and if it's mosquitoes that we're saying that the water can cause, or if there are other, whatever the specific health reasons that we have for calling it a public health nuisance, we're going to have to do it very carefully. He also cautioned that we should not be discussing the issue. In fact, not even sending out letters or emails copying each other in, because the state is really coming hard on open meeting law violations. And his concern is if this one ultimately ends up in a court someplace, that we want to make absolutely sure that we don't violate any open meeting laws. But at least I told him what we didn't want to do is wait until the spring when the thing is flooded and the mosquitoes are breeding to try to save this or to address this problem and have it all go all season like it did the last time. So
Yeah.
That's where we were. And he said, he asked me to give him about 3 weeks.
Dick, are you suggesting that we cannot send around information? We're not making decisions when we're sending around information.
I don't see that when I look at the open meeting law, and I read it again, and I haven't read it in 6 months, but I don't see that sending information is against that. What would be if you are sending the information in a way that is saying, hey, this is bad, we should do this. But I can't see that taking pictures is like you sent today, Herb.
Yeah. Or sending something from the Gazette, or sending something from CNN. I don't see that as being egregious with respect to open meeting law.
I agree with that. Lee, what is the open meeting law, when I read it, is clearly set up that it does not want us doing things that flavor what's going to be coming on like two of us say, no, look at all this. This is really awful. And then once you do that, that someone could interpret that as saying, you know what? You've in effect come to the decision already.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't have any predisposition prior to the meeting that you've already made your mind up and discussed it with another member.
Right. But
At
I
that
don't
point, you
see
cross
that.
the line.
Right. But for her to send those pictures, or Lee, 4 weeks ago, sending something that says, I saw these cars. I was on an inspection. I saw these cars. Those are matters of record. So, but I think Brian is trying to be very careful about, discussing as a board what we might be doing for, let's say, a legal stand, or not illegal, a legal position that we've got to be careful not to do that. What do we have for other issues?
Well, as you might have seen, I've asked Colleen to try and glean some information out of our data, and I don't think it's conclusive. It's interesting, but it's not conclusive. And I've sent that around about transmission within households of people who have been vaccinated versus those who have not been vaccinated.
And it is interesting what Colleen is, the last thing that Colleen sent out, almost without knowing more information, it almost looked like it didn't matter whether you were vaccinated or not. The numbers weren't very different, except for the one home that had 4 people that it was on the unvaccinated, but the others, if you looked and tried to say it, if the unvaccinated person got it and brought it in the house, did the unvaccinated person in that environment cause the vaccinated person to get it? But it wasn't night and day difference.
Well, but Dick, you recognize clearly very small numbers. So we're not trying to make hard and fast conclusions off very small numbers.
Yeah.
We're looking at the data that we have at the present time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Herb. It didn't jump out at you saying, holy mackerel, look what happened here in this place. It didn't jump out.
And there are very small numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did look there. If you look at today's numbers of people in the hospital and in the state, and they were kind of interesting numbers, because they did vaccinated. They're not the same as what you were looking for, Herb. But it was, as I recall, there were 585 people in the hospital, and 151 of them were vaccinated. So, yeah, it certainly it's a number that if you say whatever 3/4 of the people in the hospital have not been vaccinated, and then if you look at the number of people in the state, and if you say, well, 2/3 of the people in the state are vaccinated and only 1/3 are not, then your numbers start to look at stuff that it's 70, 80 more percent that you don't end up in the hospital if you've been vaccinated compared to someone that has been vaccinated.
Yes, and this is touted by every reputable scientist who looks at the data, Dick.
Yeah,
So these are facts. They're not opinions. They're facts that come out of the data.
yeah. So, Colleen, if you don't have anything more for us,
Just the email from, the COA about their pizza luncheon, and do you have any thoughts on how many people they should allow or, to come to that?
Well, I wrote back to you, Colleen, my thought about it. I don't know what anyone else thinks, obviously, because I haven't spoken.
Yes, I did
Oh.
see that.
I guess, I read what Herb said, made sense to me. But if you look at what the activity that we allow them to have anyways for their luncheons, they've got some precedent that set how many people are allowed to go in there every day.
For every day, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're
Okay.
allowing that every day to do basically the same activity, to eat.
To eat, yeah.
But this is pizza, Dick. It's going to attract people.
I guess.
Creepy.
I think you wrote, though, Herb, that maybe if it were at a high school luncheon, there'd be more interested in pizza than a senior's luncheon, but I'm not positive.
If there isn't anything else, I move we adjourn.
Yeah, I'm ready to do that. I'm not sure I can shut us off. I think Alex still has control. But I think all we can do is leave individually.